Yo, everyone, welcome to the next video. Today is going to be a fun conversation. I am going to be talking to us about loot from Classic TBC that is going to help you in the first phase of Classic Wrath. A lot of this is very min-maxy stuff. Pretty much only recommended for people who are either lazy and don't want to bother with extra pre-raid bisc gear, or people who are extra hyper sweaty and just want to get those little bitty upgrades where you can get them just for the early parts of Classic Wrath Phase 1. Keep in mind that everything that we talk about today is going to get replaced in Classic Wrath in Phase 1, but a lot of this is going to be really good for like those first couple weeks of Nax that you might be clearing. And we'll get into all the loot that I can possibly get into today. And I'm sure I've missed a few things here and there along the way. So if you think I've missed anything, just let me know in the comments below. Anyway, let's get into it. Firstly, with Classic Wrath Arrival, there is a massive nerf to armor penetration. And I just need everyone to be aware of this nerf. As you can see on the left here, I have Madness of the Betrayer, and on the right, I have Madness on Wrath. And you can see the hit is the same, the attack power is the same, but the armor pen proc is down from 300 to 42. And the same with Gloves of Immortal Dusk, the BOE gloves from Phase 5 of TBC. These have 154 armor pen, and then in Wrath, they drop all the way down to 22. So it's a decrease by sevenfold on armor pen. It is a huge, huge nerf. I will say, though, keep in mind, these gloves, for example, even though they get massively nerfed in Wrath, the extra 2 red sockets is actually extremely good because there's a lot of sockets on gear in Sunwell that we just don't have access to pre-raid BIS in Wrath. So there's going to be a lot of items that we're going to go over today that are going to be upgrades for you, assuming you're putting in the best gems into those slots that you're gaining from Sunwell. So speaking of those gems, I just have some example gems here. This is not a be-all end-all list, just a few examples. These are the best gems here in TBC for spell power. It's going to be 12 spell power, and then in Wrath you get 19 spell power. This is only going to be for phase 1 and 2 of Wrath, because in phase 3 and 4 we get epic gems, which it's the same as TBC. They're going to do even more, but we can get this much extra spell power, this much extra strength, and this much extra haste. And of course, there's lots of other gems that you can use at your disposal if you're looking to min-max those certain areas in your items. These are just going to be some big ticket ones for us. Now to start us off, in Sunwell, there are these 2 legs that drop that are really, really fantastic. And unlike Armor Pin, there's no nerf to things like haste or anything. The only thing is that haste will do less and less the higher level that you get, but that's okay. These are actually fantastic. Both of these legs are great. These legs right here are going to be best in slot pre-raid for your warlocks, for your holy priest, classes like that. These legs right here are going to be fantastic for things like your maybe your resto shaman. I think your boomkin might be interested in getting something like this. Classes like that would really like these legs, for example. And here's a comparison of those Spirit Haste legs from Sunwell in a comparison to the pre-raid BIS for Warlock legs in Wrath. As you can see, the Sunwell ones only have 2 less spell power, but a full extra gem slot. On top of that, 42 haste, which is a pretty juicy amount. And the gem slot colors are actually pretty good if you felt like matching them, although I would just recommend just going full spell power. These are going to be really, really awesome. These are definitely better than the pre-raid BIS ones for Wrath, but as you can see, the difference is not humongous. It's just a small amount. As you can see, you're dropping a lot in spirit and dropping a lot in intellect, so not a huge deal. Here's a comparison for some caster shoulders that we get in Sunwell. These are the haste crit spell power ones, and we can compare them to the dark runic mantle that we get in Wrath for pre-raid. Now these are really fun because the dark runic mantle is actually BOE and drops in a heroic. I believe it's Utgard Keep that it drops in. What's funny about Dark Runic Mantle is it's pre-raid BIS for a lot of classes, but since it drops in a heroic, it's going to be a fortune. These will be super expensive in the first week of Classic Wrath, and then after like 1 week, these are gonna plummet in price. I'm talking plummet. Probably just drop off a whole zero from the price on these dark runic mantles. But if you have the Amos of Convoker, this is going to be super solid for you. Would highly recommend just keeping this until you replace it with either next 10 gear or next 25 gear. As for Caster Cloak, Tattered Cape of Antonitis, this is a really good cloak. As you can see with this red socket, if we throw a spell power gem in there, we get the socket bonus as well. We're actually going to get more spell power out of this cloak than we would of Death Chill Cloak. Death Chill Cloak is one of the most expensive BOE items you could possibly pay for in phase one, of course, outside of a Dark Moon card. Death Chill Cloak requires a tailor to craft it, and that tailor has to have done all the quests in Northern in order to unlock the pattern. So it's going to take some time before this is even available to you. Only a few days until once Sweaty Tailor gets that recipe. But these two items are super comparable. Of course, another caster item is going to be our Spirit Haste Helm and then our Crit Haste Helm. Both of these being awesome choices for you. This one being more towards your Spirit classes, and this one, of course, being more for just your Crit Haste classes. Really, really good choices here. To compare that to what we have options to in Wrath, our Wrath Period Biz could be any number of items, actually. This first one being just a Spirit Spell Power Helm. It does get the meta socket, which is nice because we have to have that, but the spell power is only 82. If we go back and look, it's only a little bit more spell power than these Sunwell helms, while also not having any other secondary stats. So it's a pretty crappy helm all in all. The pre-raid Bis is actually usually recommended to be the Titanforge Hood of Salvation because it has the haste, more spell power, but the huge downside of this is it requires 40 marks of Winter Grasp. 40. There's no way you're getting 40 marks of Winter Grasp within the first week of phase one. That's going to take a long time for you to rack up. It's not like you can just spam Winter Grasp. You literally have to wait for 3 hours in order to do it. Another option for a lot of casters is you'll go the Hat of Wintry Doom. It's a crafted item from Tailors. Really, really good item. It's got a lot of hit, which you definitely want a lot of hit, and there's a lot of missing hit in your Period Bis, so this is a really great item for that. But if you have one of these caster helms from Sunwell, you're going to be doing really well. You're going to be just fine, and you probably don't even need to replace it at all until you start getting into the raids. And for plate shoulders, I love these plate shoulders from Sunwell. These are awesome. If you just throw two juicy red strength gems in them, they're actually going to be way better for your Unholy Decay, your Frost Decay, and for your Ret Paladin. If you compare them to the pre-raid Bis item for Wrath shoulders, we got these Sons of Hodir revered item shoulders. This has 66 strength on it. We'll actually get more strength from the Sunwell ones. The crit and haste could kind of work out to basically be equivalent to each other because crit and haste is usually around the same EP value, and you're getting a total of 57 here versus 58. So these Sunwell shoulders are actually better. The only thing to keep in mind is some of these classes do like to have expertise, and there's multiple expertise shoulder options for Wrath Pre-Raid Bis if you chose to prioritize it. So it's kind of a toss-up for you, but the Sunwell one is going to be really solid if you can get your hands on it, especially as a DK in a pre-patch. Now let's take a moment to talk about set bonuses. These tier 6 set bonuses are really only going to be viable and desirable from your Resto Shaman and Rogue going into pre-raid Bis for phase 1 of Classic Wrath. First of all, the Resto Shaman one, we are looking at both of these sets here. The 4 set is going to increase the amount healed by your chain heal by 5%. That 5% will surely get outpaced straight up just by gear. Running 4 pieces of tier 6 level 70 item will no way compete with the spell power that you'll be getting from level 80 gear. But the 2 set, your chain heal ability costs 10% less mana. It's actually great. Do I think Resto Shamans need it? Absolutely not. Do I think that they want it? Definitely. This is going to be a really good 2 set. You could run wrist boots, you could run wrist belt. Either one's going to be fine. And those will be really solid for your Resto Shaman until they get some more better gear from either Nax 25 or another phase 1 raid. And for your rogue, specifically your assassination rogue, is really going to want to run the two set from tier 6 for a while until they replace it with both bracers and boots from Nax 25. Replace them both at the same time. Don't feel like you need to stagger the replacement. This two set is going to increase the haste from your slice and dice by 5%. That is just awesome. That is just really good and will definitely be a DPS increase for you if you're using two-piece T6 until you replace both of those items. So hang on to these if you're a rogue. Do not get rid of them. Do not bank them. Do not sleep on the T6 two-piece for rogue. Really, really good. And for trinkets, one trinket that we're going to be talking about is shifting Naru's sliver. Really good trinket. Actually, really good for not only casters but for your healers too, who want the haste. So I'm thinking classes like a Resto Shaman, a Resto Druid, a Holy Priest. They'll actually really want this as well on top of some of your casters. What it does, it has a 1.5 minute cooldown to provide you with a circle that if you stand in it, you'll gain 320 spell power for 15 seconds. And if we're going to compare that to a couple other items, let's say the Mark of War Prisoner, you're going to get more out of the shifting Naru sliver, but this has 73 haste. So you'll likely want to run the Mark of the War Prisoner anyway, because you'll probably want the haste as a caster. However, if you don't have any haste issues for whatever reason, the Naru sliver will probably be a DPS increase for you. Same thing with the Forge Ember, just comparison between these two. This one's got a good amount of crit, while also increasing your spell power by a great amount for 10 seconds only instead of 15, with a 2 minute cooldown. Although I don't think that's right. I believe this is an ICD of 45 seconds. So the Forge Ember will likely sim out higher for you, as well as the emblem trinket that is not featured here on this list. So not a super desirable trinket, although don't sleep on it. That flat haste on the equip is really, really good. And I think your classes like your Resto Shaman will likely just want to hang on to something like this going into just phase 1 of Classic Wrath, but not a big priority item at all. Now, trinkets. I know a lot of you out there know exactly the woes and the drama surrounding DST and TBC. Let's talk about it from a Wrath perspective. If you have DST going into Wrath, how does it compare against the other haste trinkets that are provided in phase 1 of Wrath? Well, DST has a 20-second ICD, which is fantastic. Meanwhile, Meteorite and Tears of Bitter Anguish both have 45-second ICDs. The haste proc is only for 10 seconds all around, but you're going to get 444 haste here from Meteorite and 410 here from Tears of Bitter Anguish. Meanwhile, you only get 325 here from DST. Although the longer the fight goes on, DST is just going to continue to outperform both of these trinkets if the fight is going to continue to be longer and longer and longer. The shorter and shorter the fight, these two trinkets will actually end up being better for you. It's kind of close. A lot of times the classes will be running something like a Meteorite Whetstone because that 444 haste, it's going to be really good for your snapshot. Maybe you're playing an Unholy DK and you'd like to run something like that. So the Meteorite is still going to be better in a lot of scenarios, but DST will be fine. If you want to run DST for a while, go for it. One downside of Meteorite is it comes from a heroic dungeon. And I have been there, done that with these damn heroic dungeons where you run them every single day for 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time, and your trinket does not drop. Or maybe it does drop and someone ninjas it, or someone just steals it. That is like the most frustrating thing ever. So if you're just super unlucky, maybe you go 10, 20 days without getting the heroic dungeon item that you want, and you still have DST, at least you still got DST, man. You'll be all right. Don't sweat it. Now, similar situation here. We got a TBC trinket again. This one is from Heroic Magister's Terrace. The Shardic Intent, also keep in mind the expertise does not change when you go into Wrath. The expertise is not nerfed. What is nerfed, however, is the higher level you get, you'll need more and more expertise in order to hit your cap. So, in a way, it's nerfed, but the value is not changed. You'll still get 44 expertise, and the proc is 230 for 20 seconds. Pretty good proc, too. I would replace Shard of Content with all three of these trinkets if I ever got my hands on any of these trinkets. This one, of course, from Badges, Meteorite, and Sphere of Red Dragon's Blood coming from Heroic Dungeons. I would replace it with all of these trinkets for pretty much every class. However, if you need the expertise because you have a weird gap in your gear, and you're really wanting to get that extra expertise, charting content's really not bad. It's a pretty solid trinket. Hang on to it for a little bit if you want. Keep running with it until you replace it. Don't worry about it at all. Speaking of another heroic dungeon from TBC, we get the tanking trinket with plus 57 stamina and the equip proc versus the pre-raid bis items for your tanks. Now, Monarch Crab and Essence of Gossamer are going to be your two best in slot for all of Phase 1. All of Phase 1. For all tanking classes, these two trinkets are incredible. However, Essence of Gossamer is another one of those heroic dungeon trinkets. I have played multiple tanks on multiple servers, and at this point, I hate this trinket. A lot of times it just refuses to drop. Maybe you get lucky in the first time that you run heroic AN, you get it, or maybe you take 3 weeks to get it. If it takes you that long, but you happen to have this heroic Magister's Terrace trinket, yeah, you're gonna be missing out on a lot of stamina. I understand, but at least you'll be in a good place. This is a good trinket to pick up because it's only from a heroic dungeon. You can get it in TBC right in Phase 5, and you can just sit on it. It's going to be totally decent for you for a good portion of Classic Wrath in case you're just unlucky getting your Essence of Gossamer. Let's see. Next up, we got Bear Idol. Now, Classic Wrath, especially Phase 1, it genuinely feels like the WoW devs completely forgot about bears. There is just straight up not a good idol for bears in all of Classic Wrath for Phase 1. There is not a good one. The only ones that are really at your disposal are these two right here. One is going to increase your maul and swipe ability by a certain amount, and then this one increases your mangle ability to give you 106 attack power for 6 seconds. And this is a PvP one that you'd have to PvP for if you wanted to get it. These are crap for tanking for bear. If you want to have your best in slot idol for bear Phase 1 of Classic Wrath, it's actually from TBC. So you have to go in and get the emblems to get this idol from TBC, and don't be that guy when Classic Wrath comes around where you're asking your guildies and your friends to go run old TBC content with you just so you can get emblems, just so you can get this idol. Just get it now in Classic TBC so that when Wrath comes out, you still have your best in slot idol for Phase 1. Don't wait. Another item, we got our bow here, the Sunwell legendary bow. How does this compare to our Wrath pre-raid bis bow for hunters? Um, Long story short, it sucks. It's actually really bad. So let's compare the two real quick. The legendary bow is going to have more damage per second, higher top end. It's 0.1 seconds faster, provides randomly some armor. It provides less agility. It provides less crit and less attack power. It does give us 17 armor pin, which is basically nothing. And it only does more damage per second because it doesn't use any arrows. And what's really a big bait about this is that arrows in Classic Wrath, the best in slot ones for Phase 1 are the Serenite Razorheads. And these do 67 extra damage per second. You throw that on top of the DPS from this crossbow here from Heroic UK. This is just going to win out every time. Every single time. Thordal is fun. It's pretty. But this will quickly get replaced in Classic Wrath, especially by this Heroic Dungeon one right here, as you can see. Don't get baited. This whole generates magical arrows when the bowstring is drawn, does not use ammo, is actually a nerf to you. And don't get baited by it. Yo, and that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. That's pretty much it for this video. A little bit shorter. Nope, we're already at 19 minutes. Not a shorter one. I probably missed multiple trinkets. I probably missed multiple gear items from Sunwell that are really juicy. I know that there's really good chests there. There's decent helms. I really like a lot of the glove options as well. But these are some of the thoughts that I had with my options that were available for me in Classic TBC. So if you're trying to map ahead what you want to plan for, what you want to grab going into Classic Wrath, use this video as your guide for it. That's it. Keep commenting below. If you have any other suggestions on what kind of videos you want to see, I know I've gotten a lot of messages about doing a PvP video. I am working on a PvP video. I have some thoughts and some ideas on what I want to do with it. So stay tuned for a PvP video. I promise you it's coming. But as for now, that is it for this one, and I'm going to sign off. Peace, guys. Thanks for watching.